Welcome back, everyone. So, I have decided to name this segment Satoshi Sundays. And I know that's kind of basic, but I realistically could not come up with anything better. So, is what it is. Pretty representative of what my dad and I are going to be talking about. But happy Sunday, everyone. Hope your day is going great. Hope your weekend is going great. And, Dad, you want to say hi?
Hey, everybody. Nice to be back again on this channel. Looking forward to the conversation.
All right, this is round two, episode two, segment two, whatever you want to call it. And this one, the topic is going to be just, why Bitcoin. I want to dive into the sentiment behind why my dad is a Bitcoiner and why he chose to get the rest of the family into Bitcoin as well. So I think this is something that if you are a dad or you are a mom, or even if you're, Gen Z watching this, then this might be helpful for you. All right, Dad. Right off the bat, how are we doing? What are your thoughts on Bitcoin this week?
Um, I can be more bullish. I'm still very bullish on Bitcoin. I know the price action has not been what most of people expect it to be, but hey, Bitcoin is not a get rich quick scheme. Bitcoin is not get poor slowly scheme. So in that regards, everything else supposed to be lining up really well. All the bullish signals are already here. I think price action would follow whenever it follow. So I'm bullish, higher.
Sweet. Sweet. Yeah, that's exactly the sentiment that we're trying to set on this podcast as well. I think you and I we always talk about how price doesn't matter. I just put out a video on how your fiat, in the fiat mindset you could care about price, but the Bitcoin mindset does not care at all. So, let's just get right into it then. Dad, why do you like Bitcoin, to be blunt?
Uh, Many reasons, right? So let's walk on the paths of history to understand why I like Bitcoin. Right. I think for me, Bitcoin, we spoke on this channel, Bitcoin did not click for me when I first found it back in 2016, 2017. When it really started clicking for me was during the pandemic, when our great US government decided to print $5 trillion and everything around us started going through the roof. Like housing tripled. Like the houses that were being sold for 500K before the pandemic were suddenly selling for 1.3, $1.4 million, right? The stock market, doubled, tripled very, very fast. It's that kind of made me wonder, like, what the hell is going on? Like, how can the same house, which was worth 500K 6 months ago, suddenly be worth 1.3, $1.4 million? Like, what changed? Right? The initial explanation that I heard from people was, oh, it's pandemic. And we live in the Pacific Northwest, which is a sort of a tech hub. Everybody got to work from home. And initially, everybody thought, oh, because everybody wants more room in their homes because kids are being homeschooled, everybody's working from home. So everybody's trying to buy a house, right? So that made sense for a bit, but very quickly it realized, that can't go on forever, right? Somebody who could not afford a 500K home suddenly can now afford a $1.4 million homes. Does not make any sense. Right? Sure, very low interest rates. People are getting 2.5% mortgages for 30 years. That definitely played a factor, but that alone could not be it. Right? That's when I started understanding what's going on. Like, by understanding about economics and how does this money printing impact overall economy, lives of people. And that's where I learned inflation, which governments have been portraying as the nice, beautiful, good thing for growth. Like without inflation, there cannot be growth. In reality, inflation is a theft, right? Inflation is a hidden theft or hidden tax that people don't realize they are paying. So when suddenly governments printed 40% of the money that is in circulation in a matter of 2 years, there were more number of dollars chasing the same amount of assets. Everything started going up. And that's when I started looking at, okay, what is happening? During that time, 2021, Bitcoin suddenly went from 16K to 69K, right? Going back into the history lane, understanding more, you realize governments print money, they inject money into the economy. Money doesn't like to sit idle. Money likes to make more money, right? So where does money go? Money eventually finds its path to the assets. It might not directly find it. So for example, when the governments printed money and they handed out for like $1,400 checks at that time,
Yeah.
all of that did not, ended up in assets directly. What happened was a lot of people got those checks and went to the shopping. Like they went to Amazon, bought stuff. They went to, Nordstrom, Macy's, you name it. What happens? Their sale goes up. Their sale goes up, their revenue goes up. Their revenues go up, their profits goes up. Their profit goes up, their stock price goes up. So all this money eventually accrue value towards the assets. Some of the people actually took this money and ran to buy a house, to buy stocks. During that time in 2021, GameStop mania, some people will remember, that was exactly that. That was, a primary driver for that was liquidity. Money was flowing in, my government was printing money and sending out checks. And everybody was like, oh, I suddenly have these $2,000. What do I do? Oh, GameStop has gone up 20% yesterday. Let me pile in. Let me pile in. Wall Street Bets pops up on Reddit and whatnot. And then in that world, I also discovered this game has been going on forever. Right? It's not a new game. But what has worked in the past? Right? And then you suddenly realize there is a reason that shiny rock called as gold has been a solid store of value for over 5,000 years. And fun fact, if you price, like people say, and I was one of them as well, I'll be honest, S&P beats gold. Sure, if you're cherry picking the dates. If you go back to the time when Richard Nixon, ex-president of the United States, gave us the Nixon shock and took dollar off of gold standard, from that time till today, if you price S&P in gold, not in dollars, in gold, S&P is down.
Wow.
Right? S&P has not beaten gold. S&P has
Yeah.
barely kept along with the printing, money printing. Sure, if you go back to 1913 when the Fed was established, or even before that, you'll find S&P has done better, even priced in gold. Because the reason was, up until 1971, dollar was backed by gold. When that peg broke, everything went haywire. So in that world, so I started understanding the sound money principles. Right? And from that point, it was like, okay, gold is good. But then I also learned about the Article 6102, which FDR, back in the 1930s, basically said any American cannot hold gold more than $100 worth. They should take the gold, come back and redeem it for dollars, right? And the fun fact there is you redeemed gold for 19 point some dollars, roughly $20 an ounce, and they immediately reset it to $35 an ounce. Right? They reprice the gold, and suddenly you're like, oh, what happened here? I lost 60, 70% of my purchasing power overnight, right? And then you also dig into it. Okay, if I were to buy gold and hold gold as my asset, what if I want to leave the country? What if I want to move states? Let's say your entire net worth is let's say $200,000, $250,000. You can probably buy about 2 kilograms of gold in today's price, roughly, give or take. If you are moving across the country or even outside the country, try taking that amount of gold to the airport. Guess what happens, right? You'll be held up at the airport, questioned, and most likely be detained. You're smuggling gold. So that's where, when you start comparing, you're like, okay, you know what? Dollars have some value in terms of their portability. I can access my bank account anywhere in the country. I can use my debit card anywhere in the world. It works. Gold doesn't work that way. But gold is sound money. There has to be a better sound money that provides us portability. And that's when Bitcoin finally started clicking for me. Right? It has all the attributes of gold. It has all the attributes of dollars and then some, right? It basically also removes all the disadvantages of gold and dollars. That's what makes it the sort of the perfect money or the most sound money humans have discovered yet. Right? Now, where a lot of people are stuck right now is they have been drinking this Kool-Aid from the government that dollars are the best thing, and it will take some time for people to actually make the move, right? I'll stop here. It was a long rant answer, but any follow-ups you want?
No, there's a lot to unpack there. But first, I just want to say, like, it's really good that we're talking about Bitcoin finally from an economic perspective, purely because I think I've talked about it a lot, obviously, on this channel, but obviously what clicked with me and the way that I understood it first was from writing that so I looked at the protocol of Bitcoin. Then I just made the video that went out on Friday, and it was on why I believed in Bitcoin, and it was talking about how it was the objective truth that like for society, with the blockchain and the blocks that were being mined every 10 minutes, that are just like, this is it, and if it's not on this block, it does not exist. And that in itself is probably the most certain that we have ever gotten about anything, I think, in history of the human race.
Yeah,
But for
it's also an
you,
immutable history, right? It's not that
yeah,
somebody can go and change the history. Like, we all have studied history in our school and colleges and whatnot. Who's to tell that that history is not being manipulated?
yeah, I mean, there's a quote, right, that's like, winners get to write the history, or something like that. So this is something that is, again, truthful, to its core.
Yep.
And so we've talked about that a lot, but I think talking about Bitcoin from a macroeconomic point of view is something that probably sits better with people who are new to Bitcoin, because it contextualizes it. It relates to the problems that they're feeling in their lives, like inflation, and it makes Bitcoin seem more accessible and more human. And like, you don't really need to be someone who's got a bunch of like knowledge on how computers and like money and all these things work. So just wanted to, add that note in there. But yeah, I mean, from what I, have gathered from your little rant there. It was very progressive for you. It was something that came in stages. There wasn't like one moment where you sat down and you understood. It was this buildup of all of these things that were like, okay, something is deeply wrong, and this looks like the answer. Now, how did you first get introduced to Bitcoin? Like, when was the first time it appeared in your life, and how did you, start to view Bitcoin as the answer to all these problems?
Yeah. Um, I think first time when I heard about Bitcoin was back in 2012, 2013, when it suddenly went. I think it was 2012 when it went to $1,000, and I heard about it on the news, and I was like, I don't know what this thing is. And then I did a little bit of googling, and I was like, people were saying, "Oh, it's an internet funny money, for criminals and whatnot." And then it very quickly came down. I think it went down to $4. Again, my prices could be wrong. People can fact check me. Uh, and then the Silk Road incident happened, where it's like, oh, Bitcoin is used by the criminals to do all the illegal stuff and whatnot. And I had to brush it off and done. Encountered again 2017. Some of my colleagues at that time were actually trading it in and out and making money. And every day they were telling about, oh, I made $5,000, I made $3,000, I made $2,000. This is cool. I should dip my toes too. And that's I shared the story earlier. Like, we bought a little and then sold most of it when it went from $3,000 to like $12,000. We took a nice vacation, if you remember. But yeah, but eventually it started making sense is after I did all this work, like, which goes back to Bitcoin ethos. Bitcoin is all about proof of work, right? You won't understand Bitcoin because somebody told you about Bitcoin. You will understand Bitcoin when you will sit down, do your research, spend time to understand it. And the first thing that you need to understand is, what is the problem, right? If you don't understand the problem and you don't agree or acknowledge that you have that problem, no solution is going to fix it. As simple as that, right? So the first step is to realize that, yes, I have a problem, and this is what the problem is. Once you understand the problem, the solution starts making sense. You don't have to understand how Bitcoin actually works, right? You don't have to go and understand the code. You don't have to understand, the actual blockchain. All you need to understand from the solution standpoint, it's a decentralized, distributed system that is not controlled by anybody. It's a permissionless, system, and every transaction is recorded on the blockchain, which is verifiable by anybody who has an access to internet. And no one person, one company, one government can actually change the rules, right? So, and to put things in perspective, why did FDR back in the day made holding gold illegal and then very quickly repriced gold? Because they needed to print more money, right? Why did Nixon took us off of gold standard? Because they needed to print more money. And if as long as it was backed by gold, they could not, because they can't produce more gold magically. Gold also, like Bitcoin, requires proof of work. Mining takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of money. You can't just sit on a printer and print it. But making more dollars doesn't take anything, right? If you understand how money works, you realize this is the biggest Ponzi scheme ever. And I don't know if you understand it, but I'll give you a very quick summary, and we can delve deeper if you want to. All the banks can create money out of thin air. All they need is somebody coming to them and asking for a loan. So let's say you, Nick, want to buy a house. You finalize a house. This is the house I like. The house costs, let's say, $400K. You're gonna, you have saved up your 20% down payment, $80,000. You walk in the bank. That's the house I want to buy. I have my down payment. Here is my pay stub. I have the ability to pay the mortgage. The bank says, okay. They go to the computer, credit $320,000 in your account, which becomes a liability for you. And suddenly $320,000 become an asset for them. This money did not exist before. It just came out like this. Right? And when you understand this, you realize all the banks, big bank, small bank, doesn't matter, including our government, they all run on this debt-based economy or debt-based money, right? And the other thing that everybody should try to put their head towards is inflation is good for a debt-based money. Why? Because the money you borrow today, you are paying it with the money from the future that's going to be devalued. They're going to be less valuable than the dollar today. That's what simple terms, inflation is. A dollar today is more valuable than dollar tomorrow or dollar 5 years down the road. So if you borrow a dollar today and you have to pay it down 5 years later, like, okay, 5 years later, this dollar might be only worth 80 cents. Borrowing $1 today and paying 80 cents. And that's the biggest Ponzi scheme in my mind.
Yeah, it's really representative of how we do live in a debt-based economy. And I think this is something that goes much further beyond just the banking system in itself. But kind of a rogue question here, because on this topic of inflation. So I've taken econ classes. You know this. I had an intermediate micro class in like first sem of last year. And do you remember all those conversations I would have about like, Dad, like the prof said this, and I don't know if that's true. One of them was like, oh, 3% inflation is good. Another thing he said was like the tariffs are bad and everything. This was an American guy from Minnesota or something, and he was teaching at the uni I go to. So why is it that in college we're learning that inflation is something that we need to keep the economy running?
So to understand this, you need to understand the incentives.
Okay.
Right? If, let's say, the world was a perfect place, but the government and the banking system was actually doing this. But in schools, in colleges, we were teaching the sound money principles, the right habits, delayed gratification.
Right.
What would it do to the banks? Right? So let's unwrap this a little bit. Why does American dream require you to be homeowner? Like, being a homeowner is a foundational part of American dream. Why is that?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's good for the banks.
Exactly. Why is that real estate investments have a lot more tax incentives than any other type of investment. Why is that?
It's good
So
for the
they
banks.
sold this dream to every American citizen and practically to the rest of the world as well, that buying your own home is the true, accomplishment, or a sort of that's basically achievement that you have arrived. Right? It's a, embodiment of that. In the absence of that, what happens? Not everybody's going to rush to buy a home. If everybody is not rushing to buy a home, the real estate would not be an investment. It would fall back to its utility value, right? Today, what happens? Today, anybody who's a little bit affluent, they own more than one home. They buy first home to live, and they start buying more homes because home prices go up. This debt-based system allow them to take leverage, and then they are able to write off all these deductions, save taxes. It's good for them, the investor. It's good for the bank. Guess who's not good for? The average Joe who's renting, because rent keep going up. You know it. You live in a rental accommodation. Rents keep going up.
Yeah, they just increased the price of our laundry machines today. Dad, it cost me $8, 8 Australian dollars to do my laundry this morning.
Yeah. So
Ridiculous.
that's exactly the point, right? So if the education system starts teaching the right thing, the governments and the banks will fail, right? So if anybody says our education system is not politicized, hell yeah, it is politicized, right? I'm not saying it's blue versus red. I'm saying all politicians follow the incentives, follow the money.
Yep.
They benefit from it.
And this is something, not to butt in here, but this is something that became so apparent, I think, in the 2024 election. And maybe I'm only saying this because this is the first one that I've been old enough to actually understand sort of what is going on. There was a 2020 election, but obviously 2020 COVID. You remember how that one was going down in the House. But 2024, right, first time voting and everything, and this is when it clicked. Like, we have this idea that certain things are good and certain things are bad, and it's objective, and this party does this thing good, but this party does this thing good, and then they bad, and all these things. But it's like, at the end of the day, both parties are working for the same evil, and that evil is the fiat currency and the debt-based economy. So it's this is something that I really, really want to hammer in on, how it doesn't really matter which side of the political spectrum you stand on. You could be a libertarian, you could be an authoritarian. It doesn't matter. You know, at the end of the day, governments do not have your best interest in mind.
Bingo. Yeah,
And
that's the key point. Government does not have your best interest at heart. Nobody is coming to save you. You have to save yourself.
So then neither do the banks, right? Like, the banks also, they profit off of your suffering.
Exactly.
These institutions are essentially really, really evil, right? And they're evil because they're designed to profit a certain class of people that are obviously close to the government, president, vice president, speaker of the house, whoever it is, people like Jerome Powell, right? So if it's such a small percentage of these people that are actually profiting, and there's such, the rest of the country, you can see 99% of America is probably screwed over by the banking system that we have. Why is it that we still continue to trust it? Why is it that people are still, yes, the banks are good, the dollar is the best currency in the world, and Bitcoin is the one that's viewed as like a Ponzi scheme?
Again, I think this boils down to the narratives, right? The narratives that are being fed to people.
The propaganda?
I wouldn't call it propaganda. Right?
Okay.
Governments, education system, news channels, media, right? Wherever you're consuming information from, you need to do critical thinking. Why are they telling me this? What's in it for them? What are their incentives? Are their incentives and my incentives aligned? If those incentives are not aligned, the outcomes will differ very, very much. Right? And I would not name, I won't say president, vice president, or anything. It's the system is structured in a way, right? If I was running this system, for an example, I would do the exact same thing. Because that incentivizes you to hoard more and more, right? If I know that a dollar today is not going to be same as dollar tomorrow, I would not save money. I would go buy assets. And that's where the difference is. Smart people, or the people who understand the game, they take the dollar, any dollar that is beyond their necessities, like food, shelter, clothing, goes and buys an asset. And everybody else goes and buys a consumable.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
So let's say this. I think you did a video about these, afterpays and Klarnas
Yeah.
and whatnot,
Yeah, the
right?
buy now, pay
Buy now,
letters.
pay
Yeah.
later, right?
Yeah.
Guilty as charged. In my career as a product manager, I have built buy now, pay later systems because
Wow. I didn't know
they're
that.
valuable. Yeah, they're valuable to the business because what it does is it drives more revenue for the business. They are terrible for the consumer. They incentivize you to spend the money that you do not have.
Okay. See, you say that they're good for the businesses, but Klarna is one of the businesses that is like in a buy now, pay later like system, I guess. And they're in debt. Like they're going bankrupt because people aren't paying them back. So when you were building these systems, how were you sure that people were going to pay you back?
So this is where the differences come, right? So I'm not going to go into the details of the business, but as a business who's serving this, that business not. So for example, if you go and use buy now, pay later at Chipotle, Chipotle isn't at risk. Chipotle gets the money from Klarna.
Right.
Klarna is taking the risk and you are on the hook. Chipotle, Cold Stone, you name it, Taco Bell, all of these will make a lot of money. But is it good for you? If you can't pay for your burrito, you should not be buying a burrito, right? That's the basic thing. But incentives are not aligned. The incentives need to align. And as long as the incentives are different, the narratives would be fed to you.
Okay.
I won't call them propaganda. I won't call them anything else. But the other side will tell you what benefits them. Now, by extension, you can draw a parallel to even the social media. Why do people post such rageful, clickbaity and, controversial topics? Because
Because
for
it benefits
them,
them.
yes, for them, it's all about engagement and
Yeah.
impressions because that's how they make money. It's their career,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So as citizens, as a human being, it's on you to ask the right questions. If you are telling me something, what is your incentive and what is my incentive? And if they're not aligned, I'm not trusting you, right? So I think we touched up a little bit on this last time, but like bubbling this up, let's start with the government for a minute, right? Do you think Bitcoin is good for the government?
Absolutely not.
Right?
Yeah.
It's good
You'd
for
like
the
lose.
government in a way that if they want to use it as a reserve asset, just like gold, great. It would strengthen their balance sheet.
Yeah, absolutely. But you have to think about it, right? Governments need to have control over a society in order to
Mhm.
do their main portion, their main purpose, and
Why is
money
this
is
control
what's giving
important?
them that control right now. Well,
So think about it right, for a minute. Like, why do they need the control? Without the control, they cannot control the narrative. If they
yeah,
don't control the narrative, they will lose the plot. They lose the plot, they lose control. They lose control, and suddenly they can't print anymore.
that and having control like over the money gives them leverage over the citizens as well.
Yeah, and then that comes as part of it. They get control over citizens because they control the money and they control the
Right.
narrative.
Yeah.
And now they're
So
going to a
with
place where they want to make sure that you can only spend money where they want you to spend and not spend anywhere they don't want you to spend. Right.
yep.
So it's just like, and I don't know if you saw this or not. This week, Vietnam, they froze 86 million bank accounts.
Seriously?
Yep. Thailand did something similar some time back. And what Vietnam is saying is we need, like every bank account needs to have biometrics,
Oh
right?
my
So
gosh.
you cannot even do anything online. You have to visit a branch. And if you don't do it
Wow.
by certain date, money's gone.
And I
Right?
assume this is probably being sold under the like the disguise
AML,
of like
money laundering.
security and like
Exactly.
yeah,
Now
like
think about
fraud
this,
detection exactly.
right? Think about this for a minute. If they get your biometrics and that's tied to your bank, from there on, you go anywhere, you spend $1 from that bank account, they can tag it back to you, right? And that's the reason governments are also pushing CBDCs, the central bank digital coins. We have a version of CBDCs which a lot of people do not understand. It's called as UPI, Unified Payment Interface in India, right? And guess what? India did digital IDs long before everybody started talking about it. That's called as Aadhaar. Aadhaar has your biometrics, not just a number. It's not like your social security in the US. It's a number, but it has your biometrics linked to it. And then everything else is linked to your Aadhaar. So now
Yeah.
they know what you do, what you own, where you go. And with UPI, they know where you pay, what you buy, what is left. Like you have basically opened your entire book in front of the government, and the government can put a stop on it any day. Any day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I don't want this video to become like anti-government. They're watching us, like one of those conspiracy theories. But it really is interesting to think about, right? Because we look at UPI itself and we're like, wow, this is so great. This is so convenient.
It's
But what
controls.
business?
It's
It's
control
control to the
sold as
T.
in disguise of convenience.
Yeah, if anything, it's control, it's surveillance, it's, what is the government's business and whether you or not you want to go to like your corner shop and buy like a limca or something, right? Like it's not something that we immediately think of as bad, but I mean, it's so frustrating to see that like these things are happening around us and they're all connected to this fiat currency that we have that is controlled by the government, but somehow Bitcoin is still the thing that's like a scheme, something that doesn't quite give you, any sort of security when we have no security, we have no privacy in the world that we live in today.
That's true, but it why do we believe that you know so people have been made to believe that government has their best interest in
Yeah,
mind,
but it's kind of
right?
by the government, and this just becomes a situation of don't bite the hand that's feeding you.
But is that really true? Is government really feeding you? How does government run? Government runs off of taxes. Ignore my
Yeah.
assume government is sound, they're not printing money, they're responsible. Their revenue stream is taxes, right? So people work, people add value, they make money, government comes and says, give me my share. Like for what again? Right? Okay, fine. There are some common, humanity goods, some infrastructure work that governments do, which otherwise no single person would do, that
Yeah.
benefit overall, like all the citizens of the country. Great. But then they use the same money to basically say, see, we are helping you. We're sending you a check. Didn't you take that from me again? You're
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
returning back my money to me and saying you gave it to me. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and usually it'll be less money than you gave them in the first place, which
Oh,
is which is the
100%.
funny part.
100%.
But I think I'm in no way trying to say that we don't need governments or anything. But if we look at the sentiment, right? Let's go back to the election. Why did we have so many people getting so passionate about this? It's because as a society, especially American society, we view our government as our savior. That's why we have so much like idolization of political figures, right? That's why you have MAGA is such a huge thing, and people view Donald Trump as like this send all be all that's come down to like save us from like the woke left. Other hand, vote blue no matter who. The F the oligarchy, where people are like, we need to be saved from this like authoritarian regime and everything. So we are quite literally conditioned to believe that the government is our savior, and I think that's why I brought in the bite the hand that's feeding you analogy, because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's absolutely unfathomable to think that people who claim, or not even people because this is an entity that claims to have our best interest, will provide you with food stamps if you're poor and you can't afford food. You can have what's that new thing on the 50-year loans now if you want to buy a
Yep.
house.
50-year mortgage.
50-year mortgages. Yes, yes,
Yep.
yes. Student debt forgiveness, all these stimulus checks during COVID, right? There's so many examples of government subsidies, government help that we can, continue listing off, but we'd be here for probably like 3 hours. And that I think this is where I brought in the term propaganda in the first place, right? Because we are told to believe in the government essentially by the government, not realizing that we are the ones that fund the government. And again, in no way am I trying to say rebel against your government, anarchy. I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
simply saying that maybe it's time to take a step back, look at the things that are happening around the world. I do think in America, we are in a situation where we have it better than other parts of the world and we have it worse than other parts of the world.
Yep.
Take India, what's happening in India, for example, right? In America, we don't have Aadhaar, we don't have UPI, which is a good thing, but it's a lot going on. So, where I want to take this is the idea of having a private life, of finally having like privacy and being able to live on your own, kind of going off the grid, just being able to live away from surveillance. Is that something that's possible with Bitcoin, or do you think there's still going to be a way that like governments are essentially going to, what's the word that we used, permission everything else?
I think it. I believe that we will eventually see a world where Bitcoin would prevail, and sovereignty would be a thing, and property rights would be real. I But let's go back in the past and go back a little bit, right? Before we go and come to a Bitcoin, I think the most important part that people need to understand is, yes, you are being fed a narrative, and you can call it propaganda if you want to, but nobody can force you to believe that. The onus is on you to ask the right questions, to do critical thinking. Like, that's the skill that is missing, that is completely getting wiped out from the generations now. We very quickly jump to a conclusion the moment we see a headline. We do not try to go a little deeper and saying, what is going on here, right? Somebody posts a clip of somebody saying something, but things can be taken out of context, right?
It's not even just the worry of it being out of context anymore. Now there's the worry of it could just be fake, like with
Sure, like
AI and
I'm not
deepfakes.
even
Like
going there, but
it's,
that's also part of an asking question. Did this person really said it? If yes, why did they say it? What was the context? What was said before and after? Was it a response to something, right? Was it a follow up to something else? What was the entire context? Without understanding the context, jumping to a conclusion, this is bad, this is wrong, this is what this person wants. And I'm not saying this for red versus blue. Like, I'm an independent. I vote for what is good for me and my portfolio, right? I don't care about anything else. And if I get benefit from this side, I'll go here. If I get benefit from this side, I'll go there. Simple. Other thing that I wanted to call out here is, before we come back to Bitcoin, is with a broken money and a capitalist society, the wealth starts accumulating towards a certain group of wealthy people, which in today's world, we call them investors, owners. Owners are also investors, right? But that's where all the value accrues, right? It doesn't accrue towards the workers, right? So in this world, when this money, like brokenness, goes to extremes, or the capitalism becomes extreme, the worker class starts becoming more socialist. They start realizing that, oh, I've been working hard. I have 3 jobs. I've been working 12 hours, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I still cannot make ends meet, right? And so maybe government should come and help me.
mm-hmm.
And where this thing is kind of where the rage gets even higher, or this feeling get more exacerbated, is where one party starts saying, because of that person, that side of the government, that side of the party, this is this is the problem. If I was in power, I would hand out these. The example we saw in
Right.
NYC mayor elections,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
When the younger generation, your generation, even though getting a good degree, actually go get a job, and then you realize, I cannot afford rent and groceries and everything else I want to do with the paycheck that I get and still pay my student debt. You're like, this path failed me, right?
Absolutely, right. And this is where so much of the sentiment in Gen Z lies. And this is just one example, right? This is New York. And I'd argue that, in America, New York is probably it's viewed as the place to be. It's where Wall Street is. You have unis of the likes of NYU, right? People that are here are people that have worked hard to be there. When that route fails you, of course you're going to have anger. Of course you're going to be and you're going to look at people that have more than you, that have done better, or, it could be ethically, unethically. We're not going to get into that. But and you have this anger, like, how can you sit on an unfathomable amount of wealth when there are people like me and people who have it worse than me that are struggling?
Yep.
And this is I don't know, do you know of the horseshoe theory?
Not really.
So the horseshoe theory, basically, it just explains why, sometimes when you have not sometimes when you have capitalism and you go extreme with the capitalism, you swing right back around to socialism.
Yeah,
When
that's
you
exactly what
have
I was saying, right? Extreme
exactly.
capitalism
So,
kind of
yep.
becomes socialism.
Yep. So there's a name for that. It's the horseshoe theory, and this can be applied to
Yeah,
pretty much anything.
yeah, yeah.
You get authoritarian, you go so authoritarian that you've come completely back around, and
Actually,
it works the other way as well.
we should go back even a few steps further back in the history. Why was this path sold to us? Why was this path of this idea of middle class, study hard, go to college, get a degree, go get a job, and then life is good? This is
Yeah,
all
this
part of
was
that
after
American
World War
dream.
II, wasn't it?
Yes, but think of it, why this was done. If you really think hard about it, you realize governments needed to print money. Again, this is my opinion. This is my perception. This is how I see the world. So, not saying it's a fact, but governments needed to print money because they just fought 2 world wars, right? A lot of infrastructure was needed to be built and whatnot. And in that world, you needed workers, not owners. Because if you're owners, you wouldn't spend, you would save, you would start buying assets, right? If you are a worker, it was sold to you, oh, you make this, but you can buy a house, you can have 2 cars, you can have 3 kids. And now people started replacing kids with dogs, whatever, right? So this whole, like, in that world, what was needed was not independent thinkers. They needed factory workers, like sort of mechanical workers. Like, you feed them, this is what you do, these are your skills, that's it. And guilty as charged. I grew up in that era, right? And I struggled a bunch until I figured out the game, right? When I realized no matter how hard I work, how high my salary goes, until I start buying assets, I will always be left behind, right? You can work hard and you can get a promotion and you suddenly say, oh, you got a 7% raise. Guess what? Government printed 10% more. So you did not gain 7%, you lost 3%.
Right.
Right. So until I crossed that bridge, we were struggling too. And this is the part that which is very important for people to understand. In the current system, this will continue to work this way. And that's how Bitcoin fits into the situation where if you are putting your money. Okay, before we go there, not everybody was supposed to be an investor. Not everybody can sit down, look at charts, understand this company, look at their financial reports, understand the reports, read through their earnings, calls and transcripts and whatnot, and then make a decision, whether this company is good, and then keep a track. Is the company doing what they said they will be doing? But people were forced to become investors because the governments were debasing.
Yeah.
Back in the day, when gold was money, people didn't have to basically say, I've saved, I bought gold, where do I invest it now? They said, okay, you know what? I worked hard. Whatever I've left, I'll buy land or I'll buy gold. That's how my grandparents did. That's pretty much what my parents did, right? But in our generation, the debasement accelerated because of Nixon, right? And then people might say, oh, it was Nixon. How does it affect the world? Guess what? Every other currency was pegged to dollar. So when they took dollar off of gold, everything else got off of gold.
Yep.
Right? So everybody was forced to think about being an investor because their dollar was losing value, right? So, but everybody was not supposed to be an investor.
Right.
So now if you think about Bitcoin, you have a version of money that is not going to lose value, probably is going to gain value, it's going to appreciate faster than the debasement rate, then you don't have to worry about where do I invest my money. And if anybody is seeing Bitcoin as an investment, and that's the reason I said earlier, Bitcoin is not a get-rich-quick scheme. You're not buying next Dogecoin or Shiba Inu or whatever, like or Fartcoin or whatnot. You
I
are
don't think you want to
essentially,
buy the next Dogecoin anyway.
essentially what you're buying is a digital version of gold.
Yeah.
Right? So you're buying it, you're putting it in cold storage, and you're getting back to what you're good at,
Yeah.
which is whatever skills you have, however you can add value to the humanity, keep doing that. And whenever you have a little bit of excess money, push it in that side. And now,
Yeah,
why
Bitcoin is
it would
really just
work?
protecting your wealth.
Exactly. Why it would work? Go back to the thing I said earlier in the episode. If you price S&P 500 in gold since 1971, you have lost money. You could have been the best investor. You have lost money. Sure, there could be, every somebody will say, oh, Warren Buffett did better. Warren Buffett since, 19, over the last 60 years had done like 5.5 million% gains and whatnot. Guess what? You're not Warren Buffett, right? You're not a better investor than him. So, and that's why, this idea of whole index funds and everything was sold to people. Oh, you are not an investor, just buy S&P 500 and sit on it. You don't have to. Okay, not a financial advice, but I strongly believe for younger generation, for your generation, I think it's best to just save money in Bitcoin and hone your skills, be better at adding value to humanity, right? Gain skills that let you make more money. The more money you make, the more money you can put into Bitcoin and secure your future.
Yeah. And we talked about this a lot last week. We dove into kind of the skills that were needed, or not needed, but that were going to be more valuable in the AI economy. So just a quick little plug in to check out Satoshi Sundays #1, I guess, if that's something that is of interest to you.
Yeah.
But we've talked a lot now about the kind of economic problems that Bitcoin solves, but I wanted to get personal in this episode, and I wanted to talk to you about, why did you, once you understood Bitcoin, why did you choose to, get the rest of your family into it? Because I came across your blog again, actually, like 2 days ago, onemoremillion.com. I came across your blog and I read through the article that you have on there about teaching financial literacy to your kids. And I was like, this is really, really interesting. So I was like, let's talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
And, of course, teaching financial literacy to your kids is important. So you definitely should talk about, or like, I give a little context on how you did that for hopefully the parents that are watching this. But my main question here is, when did you decide that Bitcoin was something that you needed, Vivan and I to get onto?
So before we get to Bitcoin, why financial literacy is important? Our education system doesn't teach us it. The entire emphasis is always on get skills, make more money. Nobody teaches what do I do with the money once I made it, right? Like I did my engineering degree. I graduated. I got a job. I was making decent money. Nobody told me what do I do with this money. Nobody taught me that buying assets is the right thing to do, right? And once you realize that this is a missing chapter in our education system, as parents, it's our duty to help our kids, right? I don't think fiat world will go away. If anybody thinks, good luck. I may be wrong, but I don't think it's going to completely go away.
Okay.
Right? And if fiat world stays around, I don't think money printing is going to slow down. It has not slowed down in the last 50,
Right.
60 years. It's going to continue to accelerate.
It's accelerated, yeah.
Right? If it continues to accelerate, guess what will happen? You will lose your purchasing power even faster, right? Which means it's going to be even harder for you guys to do things like the things that we were able to do in our 40s. You probably will have to wait till your 60s.
Wow.
Right? In our parent generation, if you were in your mid-20s, had a decent job, you could think of, I can get a mortgage because I have a salary. I'm going to stay with this company for 30 years. For our generation, it shifted to 30s. I bought my first home when I was 35, right? So from that standpoint, it is our response. It's our moral responsibility. It is in our best interest to make sure anybody who who carries your last name, you teach them, you give them the financial literacy, understanding assets, liabilities, what to do with the money when you get some. And then, sure, there is a reason it's called personal finance. It's very, very personal. So I'm not going to give any like a blueprint that this is what you can do. But the basics, that differences between assets and liability, differences between good debt versus bad debt, making sure the kids understand it, making sure they understand the power of compounding is really, really important. And the reason I say this is human minds are really terrible at understanding anything exponential. We understand linear very well. We can't comprehend, exponential function. That's the reason everybody who went to school and has done at least middle school, they have studied about compound interest. But I can guarantee you, majority of people do not understand, right? And the beauty
Yeah.
is, if you don't know how to earn compound interest, you'll end up paying compound.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember like this one time you asked Vivan and I to pick between, I think it was like $1 million today, 8 Bitcoin today, and then it was a penny that doubled every day for the next
30
29
days,
days,
30
30
days.
days. So it doubled 29 times,
Yep.
and that came what to like 5.67 million or
Yeah, it's
something
about
like that.
5.4 million roughly. So it's like
Okay, yeah,
people look at a penny, and this is the
yeah,
this is the beauty, that up until day 26 or something, this penny is still less than $1 million.
yeah.
Majority of the
I mean,
people, like, even if you make it simple and remove Bitcoin and just do $1 million and a penny, because people understand a dollar and a penny and $1 million, majority of the people will pick $1 million. Because even when they say, "Oh, how big a penny can go in 30 days? How big?" And it's
yeah,
not
I
until
agree.
they day 26, 27 when it actually crosses a million, and then suddenly it's like 5.5 million,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah,
now
yeah,
the reason now it's time probably to bring back Bitcoin into the conversation is Bitcoin not only provides an asset that is gonna retain its purchasing power over time. I think it also provides optionality in terms of freedom, sovereignty, right? If governments, because I remember I said the fiat system is not going to go away. If it does not going to go away, governments will want more control. If the governments will want more control, in that world, you want to have options. Like, you should have optionality to pick up your bag and leave the city, the state, the country at your will,
yeah, yeah.
and be able to
And
carry
that's
your
not to
wealth with
say,
you.
yeah, yeah. And that's not to say, that's an easy thing or anything. Of course it's not. You might have a home, you might have a family, but I think it's just the aspect of, if you're going to have savings, which you should have savings, this is like finance 101. Um keep it in Bitcoin over keeping it in dollars, right?
Yeah. So a lot of people feel, oh, I have my money in the bank. It's safe. Guess what?
It's not safe.
It's not safe. Not money. It's not a bank.
Yeah.
And it's not yours. And the most funny thing is, people say Federal Reserve Bank. Like, it's neither federal, not a bank, because you and I can't go in and open an account there. And they have zero reserves. Right? So it's a Federal Reserve Bank, but it's neither of those three. So what
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right.
So
I
eventually, sorry to barge in, but all I'm trying to say is, in a chaotic world that we are already seeing, like, if you look back 5, 10 years to where we are now, the chaos in the world has increased. The uncertainty in the world has increased, right? And if you anticipate that this is going to continue in this path until it becomes better, you want to be in a situation where you can say, okay, I'm going to uproot myself. I'm going to take my family to a place where I feel safe along with my wealth. So in my mind, physical safety and financial safety are the two biggest priorities for anybody in the world, right? So if you or your family is in danger of any type, racism, violence, war, you should be able to go. And when you go, you should be able to take your wealth. You can't do that with dollars. You can't do that with.
agreed. When you were talking to, you know, to us, Mom, Ivan, and I about Bitcoin, you had started like, I want to say maybe mid 2024 is when you fully, like, it was every conversation in the house was Bitcoin. But obviously, I don't think it really like sat with us until till much later. So when did you notice that like we started to kind of believe in it and started like being like open to the idea of Bitcoin?
I think the most important thing that I learned as I was orange pilling myself was this concept of proof of work, right?
Okay.
And I knew I could say whatever, I could give you however many books to you, to your brother, to your mother, right? It's not right, and that's true, right? Um,
Yeah.
I think Michael Saylor says that you don't find Bitcoin, Bitcoin finds you,
Yeah.
right? So I knew that just handing you a book, showing you podcasts is not going to help. So with those conversations, what I was trying to do is ingraining that proof of work in you. Like if so, the way I like to say it is, to get curious about Bitcoin, you need to spend about 10, 20 hours. And to really start wrapping your head around it, you need to spend 100 plus. And then there is no end to it. You can go as deep as you. So what I was
Yeah.
trying to do is I was trying to cross that initial hurdle from 10 to 12, 10 to 20 hours with those conversations. If you remember, every conversation was slightly different.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes we were talking about macroeconomics. Why are government printing money? Why are they, how do they fund wars? Why why we stop wars if we, get to a sound money. Sometimes we like look at Bitcoin has been the best performing asset for last decade by a mile, right? And so what I was trying to do is trying to make sure that you hear enough that you get curious, right? And the curiosity, I saw you in, kind of, the dial was turning on around the summer 2025. And in
Yeah.
2025, August, you started this channel, right? So
Yeah.
I think, like, I don't believe you can orange pill anybody just by having one conversation. Right? You can, like, somebody might buy it, but they'll buy it because you told them so and they trust you, but they would not understand. And if they just buy
Yeah.
it, they will freak out the first time it drops. So, for example, if you told somebody and they bought it in late September, early October, they probably are cursing you right now
Yeah,
because they're
probably.
down like 30%.
Yes.
So, like that's the difference. Right? And then there are multiple layers to understanding Bitcoin too. Right? The first important thing that you need to understand is the concept of scarcity, right? Before we go everything else, scarcity is what creates value. There's only one Mona Lisa in the world. Sure, there might be fakes, but there's only one. So the price of
Yeah.
it in, sort of infinite, right? It depends on the price that somebody is willing to pay, where somebody is willing to buy it for or sell it for,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Bitcoin has 21 million coins. And any people could say, oh, every coin has like 100 million Satoshi, so it's infinitely divisible and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Humans don't like to think in fractions. We don't. That's the reality.
Yeah.
Everybody would want to own a full Bitcoin. They can or not is a different story. Once they understand, they would want to own at least one, right? Guess what? How many millionaires are in the world today? It's about 60 million, give or take,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Depending on what sort of stats you look, or 60 million. We have only 21 million Bitcoin ever. So if it just clicks for all millionaires, all of them can't have one, right? We have 8 billion people. If everybody wants one, not possible. Zero point 0.1 is not possible. Guess what? 0.01 is not possible. I'm assuming all 21 million coins are available and ready for sale. Understanding this scarcity for majority people takes a very long, right? People don't
Well,
realize
this
the reason gold is valuable is primarily because of its scarcity.
right,
Sure, it
right,
has
and
some
Bitcoin
industrial
is
use,
obviously more
some
scarce
jewelry
than
use, but it's nothing else.
yeah, yeah, and of course Bitcoin is more scarce than gold is
Yep.
by like a large amount. But does this not raise questions in you about accessibility to Bitcoin? Like you said, there's only 21 million. Out of that, if you take how much is lost, how much is already accumulated by people, and obviously people who are never ever going to sell, how much does that leave for, what is it, like 95% of the world?
Hey, I think I have some contrarian viewpoints here. First of all, I don't
Okay.
believe there is anybody in the world who would never sell. Everything is for
Really?
sale. Everything is for sale depending on the price,
Okay.
right? So somebody might not sell at 1 million. They might not sell at 10 million. But if somebody's offering 100 million, so let's say there's a person who has 5 Bitcoin, like
Yeah.
hypothetical person has 5 Bitcoin, and They have all their wealth is in Bitcoin. They might not sell for $1 million. But when it goes to 10 million and they're married, they have kids, wouldn't they want to sell half a Bitcoin and at least buy a nice house and improve their life, right? Like, what is
Yeah.
the point of wealth that you cannot use to improve your life?
Agreed.
Right? Sure, they might not sell everything, right? At 100 million, they might say, you know what? I've always wanted to have a big yacht, maybe a small plane, because I wanted to be a pilot always. They might say, you know what? I still have 4.5 left. I'm going to sell one and I get $100 million. I pay taxes. I still have like $75 million left. I go buy a 50 million yacht and I use 25 million to buy a lakefront property and whatnot. And, so if anybody says, I'm never going to sell, either they're not 100% into Bitcoin, or they have not fully grokked it, or they're just simply lying.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the first part. If you keep that in mind, there will always be Bitcoin available for people willing to pay the right price, right? Now, would everybody able to get what they want? Probably not. Probably not. So if anybody thinks Bitcoin is gonna solve the wealth divide or wealth inequality, I think it's gonna make it worse, right? And that's the reason, like if you go read on the internet and whatnot, you'll hear all about the $5 renter tax and whatnot. So, if anybody has any sort of Bitcoin, they should also think about the security of it, the safety of it. And that's the reason personal security or physical security becomes utmost important.
It goes beyond just, self-custody and, self-custody and a cold storage. Like, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond, are you safe? Are you storing your wallets in a safe place?
So extrapolate that for a minute, right? Extreme capitalism goes to socialism.
Yeah.
If history suggests anything, socialism never works. What usually comes after socialism? Usually a revolution.
Authoritarian regime. Yeah.
Usually is some sort of, overturn the government, chaos, public comes on the streets, political violence, any other type of violence. Because guess what? If you don't have money to put food on the table, what do you have to lose? You would take the route of
absolutely nothing.
Crime.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if you know the story of the French Revolution, right? But you had like Marie Antoinette and like King Louis who were like eating cake and like all these luxuries while French people couldn't afford bread. And so if you've ever heard the phrase, let them eat cake, that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
So this is going back to what we were talking about earlier with, what's happening in New York City and people in my generation just being angry and looking at the people that have things while we have ownership over practically nothing when it comes to assets, right?
I think it's not just about assets. I think it's also about the physical security. That's the most important thing. Like, what good are assets if you are not physically secure?
Yeah.
Right? So I believe physical security of yourself and your family is up here. Nothing beats it. Nothing beats it. No amount of wealth beats it. Everything else is down the chain. So everybody should think from the perspective, if the chaos is going to rise, what am I going to do? What is my exit path? Sure, from the financial standpoint, if you understand Bitcoin, you might have said, okay, I found my path. I have enough or not, I don't know. But at least you know a path. And if you are earning Bitcoin, then you could be earning Bitcoin anywhere else in the world too. It doesn't mean that you have to stay where you were born.
Mm-hmm.
You could go where you feel safe.
Correct.
But if you are not physically secure, or if when shit hits the fan and you need to leave, you don't have an option, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize, like, are we going to stay and fight? Fight for what? Look at what's happening in UK. Largest millionaire migration out of the UK. Governments keep putting more and more regulations, more and more taxes. Doesn't work. It would never work. Right? Mm-hmm. We saw the example in our city of Seattle. When city of Seattle introduced a tax, a headcount tax on employers, guess what? The bigger employers started moving. Then they said, then there isn't, we had a budget deficit. We're going to make it statewide. Hey, earlier they moved from Seattle to the east side. If you do it statewide, they're going to go to the next state, right? Who would, if as long as you have options, who would want to pay more taxes? Why did California see a large migration? And with the new introduction of that billionaire tax on the ballot. I don't know if it will get enough votes or not. But the more and more I read, almost every billionaire that has come out and said something, they've said at some point in time I'll have to leave.
Yeah. Yeah, it never made sense to me why, people with money were the target of these taxes, as if they wouldn't just go because they have money, they have the means to. That's not at all to say you should tax the people who can't leave. That's to say maybe taxation is not the answer to everything.
I think this goes back to the incentives. Remember, last time we spoke about politicians only care about one thing: getting reelected,
Votes. Yeah.
right? And humans in general do not like to take ownership of anything wrong with their life.
Mm,
I am yet to meet
true.
anybody who basically said, "Oh, I am suffering and it's my fault." I'm yet to meet anyone, right? And including me, right? I'm in the same boat too. Like, that's an easiest escape. Oh, I have this problem. It's because of that. We like to point fingers.
We do.
That's we need somebody to blame. And when the wealth divide or inequality increases, poor sees, oh, the rich is becoming richer, and politicians take advantage of the
Exploit
fact.
that.
They exploit that.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I say, follow the incentive. The politician's incentive is not to make if you are a poor person, to make your life better, or if you're a billionaire, to make your life better. Their incentive is, who's going to vote for me? If I take side of billionaires, there are only a handful of them. The entire world has like 3,000, 3,500 billionaires, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So my votes are going to come from the people who are below. I'm going to go say things that will make them feel good. You are poor because these greedy rich bastards. Like, they're not telling them, oh, you are poor because we are debasing the currency for you. We are basically, rug pulling you.
It's the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
that's exactly what'll get you. It's, as you said, I mean, I don't think I could put it better than follow the incentives, right? At the end of the day, what happened during the when I was looking at media during the last election that we had, both sides are screaming stuff. What exactly are they rooting for? What problem are they trying to solve? How are they solving it? Where does their motivation come from? It all just comes back to the fact that, like, everybody wants power and everyone wants money, and power corrupts. It's no one person's fault. If I was put into a position of power, I would probably be a corrupt politician too. It like it's this
I will challenge that.
really.
Power corrupts because of broken money. If the government cannot print money, and it's not an extractive society, power can, sure, you would want control, you might want to use force to take it, but that will be visible.
Yeah.
If the government starts knocking on everybody's door and starts seizing their asset, that will be visible. They can buy their local media. Somebody will come out and that will overthrow the government. But if they're printing money, which normal people don't even understand, like, ask anybody, walking in the street, do you know how much debt we have, or how much debt the country has? Or do you know how much interest payments are we paying? Or do you know how much money is in circulation? Or how much government printed last year? Or what
How
happens
much
when
debt
the
are we
money
in?
is printed? No, like, majority people, common person, an average Joe doesn't understand it. And that's what they exploit.
Out of curiosity, how like exactly how much debt are we in? Do you know the number?
I think it's a little over 38 trillion, and it's counting because increasing every minute. And the reason it's increasing every minute is because even to pay first of all, we are spending more than we are making.
Mm-hmm.
And second, to pay the interest, because even if you don't pay the principal ever, which I don't think governments want to pay ever,
Right.
you need to print more money. Because if you're already spending more money than you make, and you have your interest payment is going up, you'll have to print more. So going back to our thing, I don't see a world where our spending would go down, or interest payments would go down, or money printing will slow down. Not gonna happen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I see that. Wow. A lot was said today.
I don't know if that you got what all you wanted to get out of the conversation.
I think I did. Yeah, I think.
So I think my parting message, or my last message to anybody watching, if you are parents, have if you have any type of money available to you, start thinking about buying assets. If you are an adult or a soon to be adult, understand how money works. start asking tough questions, start understanding the incentives, follow the money before you take any narrative at its face value. Doesn't matter who said it,
Yeah.
right? Even if your parents are telling you something, ask, do critical thinking. Ask, why are they telling me? I'm not saying your parents don't have your best interest at heart. Most likely your incentives and your parents' incentives are aligned, but that will put you into the position of asking the critical question. Do the critical thinking.
Yeah.
That's an most
Yeah.
important piece of advice. And as parents, make sure you teach your kids financial literacy. You teach them the right spending habits. Like learn or teach them how to have a delayed gratification and make them understand between good debt versus bad debt. Last but not the least, I would say to all the young adults why this is important, understanding all this is important, is if you want to create any type of wealth in life, you need a handful of things, right? You need practically four things. You need the capital, you need the rate of return, you need time, and you need debt, right? Guess what you guys have the most in your hand is time. You
Time.
are young, understand power of compounding, start investing early, even if it's little, it's going to yield much, much, much but different results.
Yeah.
Understand the difference between the good and the bad debt. The
Yeah.
basic thing that you want to understand is if you are taking debt for either a depreciating stuff like a car or a large screen TV, or if you're taking debt to buy a burrito, stay away. If you're taking debt to buy assets, you're taking debt to buy real estate, you're taking debt to buy any other type of asset that grows faster than the rate of interest on the debt, you are doing good job. So understand personal finance, understand debt, understand how money works, because nobody else is coming to save you.
Wow. Wow. What a message. Oh my goodness, Dad. I have like goosebumps. I just for a second for the listeners, I don't want to kind of overshadow what my dad has said with his closing. I think take that, follow that advice. One thing that stuck out to me the most, I think, in this episode, this conversation that we've had today, is this idea of following the incentives. And this comes back to that critical thinking that you were talking about. Don't trust people blindly because they say they have your best interest in mind. Kind of think of where they're coming from, what are they working for, and what benefits them. And I think if you were to apply that to kind of all aspects of your life, it would be in your best interest. With that being said, I do not have any other
I
closing
think
notes for
let me
today.
add something to what you just said. That's also a principle of or ethos of Bitcoin. In addition to proof of work, don't trust, verify. Right? If
Verify.
anybody's saying something to you, don't blindly trust it. Verify it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Everything we've said today, don't blindly trust us, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
that would be the exact opposite of what we want as people that believe in Bitcoin. Verify it for yourself, come up with your own beliefs. And I really hope you enjoyed today's session because I definitely did. I think I enjoyed this one much more than I enjoyed the last one. So that means with every episode, we're getting better. It's a great, great thing. But yeah, I will see you guys on a Tuesday. My dad will see you guys on Sunday. So, with that being said, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay orange pilled. I'm your host, Nikki, and this is my dad, and we will both see you on Sunday next week.